Hello and welcome to NONI, Yanga's flagship talk show where we discuss the topics that you, our viewers at home, are talking about just a little bit louder. I'm Mercy Ajisafe and today I'll be asking my guests why so-called men of God are never held to account. So who are my guests today? Well, joining me today are gospel music talent manager Sam Olomo, project manager and founder of Sissy Worldwide, Rachel David, and writer Christopher Ajisafe. Welcome everyone, thank you so much for joining me. So let's just get right into it. Now in the West, everyone prostrates themselves in front of celebrities, whereas in Africa, especially Nigeria, it's the church that is revered. So it seems fitting that where the West Me Too movement was instigated by showbiz, Nigeria's is happening through the alleged misconduct by a man of God they call the Gucci pastor, Biodun Fatoyinbo. Now, we've debated before on this show whether or not pastors have too much power, and the general consensus was yes. However, with the recent scrutiny of priests in the Catholic Church, bishops in the Church of England, and now pastors back in Nigeria, it seems timely to ask the question, why is so-called men of God rarely ever held to account? Sure, they're excommunicated, defrocked, and forced to take leaves of absence when their irrefutable evidence surfaces. But until that fall from grace, they are often allowed to act without sanction or censure. Now, who should be policing the pastors? Is it their flock? Is it their superiors? Or is it an independent body like Ofcom or Ofsted that carries out appraisals and checks for any signs of corruption or bad behaviour? Panelists, how do we nip this unchristian-like behaviour in the bud? Because obviously, guys, let's not forget, we do have to think about the children. After all, they are the future. So I've got a pretty good panel. I was really intentional about everyone that's here on this table today because I do have Sam. You're a, gospel talent manager, so you're very involved in the church. Rachel, you've been very, very involved in the church. Of course, we call you PK, Pastor's Kids. Your father was, a very, 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 very popular bishop who was held in very high regard. And of course, we have Christopher, who people don't know this, but he was actually a youth pastor. And for a while, we actually thought he would be a pastor. So you people are men and women of God. So I think that you're the best kind of people to talk about this. Now, Rachel, let's start with you because you are the only woman on the panel. Now, a little while ago, I had people in here, same thing. And I said, do you think that pastors are given too much power? Do we as Africans give our autonomy to our religious leaders? And they said yes. Now, you know what's happened in the last few weeks with everything that's come out with Bisola Dakolo and, of course, Gucci Pastor Biodun Fatoyinbo. Now, why do you think men of God are rarely, if ever, held to account?
I think there's an element of fear and awe that their congregations at least have of their pastors. Mm-hmm. And I mean, pastors are treated like celebrities, their families are treated like celebrities, they have entourages. Mm-hmm. They often are quite wealthy as well, especially in Nigeria. Mm-hmm. And obviously wealth also carries a lot of status. And I think people are quite frightened to say negative things about pastors. Mm-hmm. There's always that feeling of don't bring a man of God down. I think there's a verse from the Bible that we spoke about earlier.
I have it right here.
Touch not my anointing. That's it. Which was often used out of context to kind of quieten you down if you ever had anything to say that wasn't flattering about a man of God. And I mean, that silence was often, coerced, I feel, from, members in the congregation. People didn't want to talk about it. If there was anything negative, people didn't want to talk about it.
Now, your dad was a bishop, and your mum is a pastor. Like, what was your experience when you say they're treated like celebrities and people don't really what was your experience as a child of a pastor and a bishop? What was your experience?
I mean, I feel like our congregation was quite small, so I feel like it wasn't as bad. But I mean, I know obviously my dad had many friends who were pastors who, I mean, people would be shocked to say, oh, Pastor so-and-so said hello to you, because obviously we would know them, they were my dad's friends. They would be shocked that, oh, Pastor so-and-so said hello to you. People make a really big deal out of that. And I'm like, God, is he Beyonce? I don't understand. Why is it such a big deal? And I mean, the congregation definitely hold them in high regard and they're willing to do stuff. I mean, people really, I think, at their mercy as well. If Pastor so-and-so said something, get here at 8 a.m.
They'll be there at 7:30.
Of course, yeah. And I mean, people would literally do anything they told them to do. I think it was that power as well, and that, the awe that they had for them, that meant that they had so much power and influence in their life. And then also you didn't want to be the one to bring them down because you were scared of the reaction of other people. If everyone respects this man, then you must be crazy to think that they've done something wrong, or you must be crazy to accuse them of something.
Now, Sam, a lot of gospel singers actually started off in the choir. Now, there is, you know, a lot of people often say that the hierarchy in the church is you have the choir, then of course you have the pastors, which means that often so the choir members actually answer to the pastors.
Yeah.
Now, what have you seen? Why do you think that men of God are rarely held accountable for their actions? Because this whole thing between choir, you know, the choir singers and the pastor, you know, we've often heard this story before.
No, you're correct. Funny thing is, I'm actually also a choir leader in my church.
There we go.
But just following on from what has been said, I think one of the main problems that we have is this, you know, hierarchical system, this cultural attitude that we're trying to bring into the church that wasn't and shouldn't be in the church. If you look at history, the Catholic Church also experienced this in the 14th and 15th century with the Reformation from Martin Luther, where he came out and he said, look, we can't have a church where the people cannot understand what is being said on the pulpit.
Unless this is not a church.
Exactly. We also can't have a church, for example, where you know the sort of sermons that are being preached are not sermons that are biblically and theologically sound or correct. So I feel like the difficulty that we have in Nigeria is not only specific to Nigeria. It's something that we inherited, and it's something that also is so prevalent now that it's so difficult to change. There is a fear. I won't call it a reverential fear. I won't call it a godly fear. I would say it's a demonic fear. It's a fear that's you know that has come as a result of the fact that if they do say anything against their leaders or their ministers, it would be seen as you're rude or you don't have any respect. But the thing is that God, or biblically, the Bible doesn't teach us to have that sort of fear for our leaders.
It doesn't say that you're meant to hold your pastors in reverence and defer to them.
At all. And you find that a lot of people are now being enslaved by these ideas of looking at your pastor as God and he's the one that can pray for you. But no, God says no. Like, you can pray for yourself. You can obviously you can attend church, but the fellowship is important. But you can do the things that your pastor, so to speak, everyone is, you know, placing so much of a burden on him to do.
Now, when we're talking about pastors and men of God in particular not being held accountable, we are, of course, I mean, primarily we're talking about sexual abuse and sexual misconduct in the church. Now, a lot of people have said, you know, especially with this whole, you know, Pastor Biodun Fatoyinbo, there are a lot of people that have come out on social media and said that, you know what, I believe these relationships are consensual. These young girls like these men, you know, they look up to them and they want to have a sexual relationship with them. Now, the interesting thing is that you were a youth leader, Christopher. You were also, you know, you're an extremely attractive man. You've always been extremely attractive. Let's call a spade a spade. All the girls in the church had a massive crush on you and they always used to throw themselves at you. Now, do you think that that is an excuse for you as a man to, you know, kind of forget yourself and forget what you're here to do and, you know, act in any way? Do you think the fact that young women find you attractive or the fact that young women are throwing themselves at you kind of absolves you from any responsibility as a man of God?
Of course not. Of course not. I mean, the moment you give into something like that, you've already violated what you've signed up for when you're working for God. So I don't. First of all, I don't even believe that it's the females throwing themselves. I mean, obviously, you're going to get a few
I don't believe that either. Yes.
It does happen, but especially this one that we're talking about now with the Gucci pastor, as he's known, and even other pastors. These are people exploiting these young females. They're exploiting them. So no, I don't see it like that. And it's all about biblical principles.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fornication has never been the thing to do. It's never the right thing. So there's absolutely no excuse. There'd be no reason.
Why do you think they're not held accountable? Why do you think these? And before you even answer that, to go back to what Rachel said earlier on, there is a particular Bible verse that people use to absolve themselves from guilt all the time. And listen, if anybody comes to me with that nonsense again, we will fight. So now it's Psalm 105 verse 15, and it's, "Do not touch on my anointed ones. Do not harm my prophets. Do no harm to my prophets." And people always said that. In fact, I saw a comment on social media that said, "Touch not my anointed. Even if pastor raped you, he's a man of God. Can you not just deal with it and accept it?" Now, when you hear things like this, then it kind of, you know, you can kind of understand why these people are not being held accountable. In your opinion, why do you think men of God aren't held accountable by their congregation and by the church?
I think it's an issue of power. And obviously, yes, it's church theological issues, but ultimately it is an issue of power. You have this man in such a powerful position, and first of all, your first instinct is to be with the pastor, to side with the pastor. Oh no, he's innocent, it couldn't be. And then even when you believe, oh, you know, well, he's a man of God, he just fell a little. But it's so hard for people to see past the person and look at the fact that if you are sinning, you're obviously wrong for the position, you're wrong for the role. And I think biblical issues are so different from circular issues, because I think you're running with two different almost morality codes. The people in the church don't want to get the people outside the church involved, so they just think God should handle everything. If a man of God sins, okay, that's really bad, but that's for God to deal with him. We don't need to get the police involved. We don't need to get lawyers involved. And I think with that verse that you're talking about, people are really afraid of doing anything. I remember my mom would always say that. If I saw a pastor that was a little too flash and I was like, oh, well, look, his hair's jerry curled or something, like, hey, no, don't talk about the man like, you go to hell. So there are always issues involved in trying to rebuke these men of God, and obviously they take advantage of it.
Now, let's talk about the hierarchy itself. Now, we know that right at the top, you tend to have the general overseer, who is known as the head pastor, then you have junior pastors, and of course you have the trainee pastors, and then you have the head of the choir and everything. Do you think the hierarchy is part of the problem that we're experiencing? Because what we heard is that, I mean, when you're talking about Pasola Dakolo, I don't know if any of you actually watched her interview that she gave to Y Niger. One of the things she said is that it was a combined effort. It wasn't just him. It wasn't just the main pastor. At the end of the day, he had his tracks covered by the junior pastor, the pastor, but it was an effort between all of them. So do you think that these people are actually just, taking their cue from the top? Because everyone at the top seems to be rotten. What do you think the issue is here with the hierarchy, Rachel?
I think that the person at the top is so far removed from the person at the bottom that basically there's no accountability, if that makes sense. Like, the person at the bottom of people almost like playthings, if that makes sense. There's no real sense of them being a person because you've got so much power. You can literally tell whole groups of people, thousands of people in some cases where congregations are quite large, what to do, and they'll do it. You can tell them, turn up for a 6 a.m. service and they will come. You can tell them, sacrifice your cars, bring me your cars, bring me money, and then things like that. People do it. Yeah. So the fact that, someone's got that much power with that many of people, that broken link between him kind of, and maybe even seeing members of his congregation, especially young girls, as human beings and people that he's supposed to empathize with, they're almost just kind of like, I don't know, they're just kind of like cannon's fodder, if that makes sense. Like basically,
cannon fodder.
Yeah, kind of. I don't even know what the right term would be, but basically that he's so far removed from them that he can't really empathize with them, and he has so much power over them that again, they're not people that he sees as equals. And then he's got people even between them that are going to help him do what he wants to do, that he can tell, look, don't talk about that. And they're not going to talk about it. You blatantly see me do something wrong, but I've asked you not to speak about it, and I know that you're not going to speak about it. Like, he has that much trust in the people below him because he has that much power. I think that's the problem.
So do you think that if we get rid of all the people, and very quickly because we do have to go on a break, so do you think if we get rid of all the people at the top that this might be a good way to start? Like, let's talk about Koza, for example, because Koza is the church that Pastor Biodun Fatoyibo is the senior pastor at. So for example, when you look at Koza, if we get rid of all the top pastors, do you think that this is possibly something that might help them deal with the challenge?
I don't think personally that would
do anything.
I think first of all we need to go back to what the Bible says about leadership and also how we should live as Christians and how we should be to each other as Christians. And I want to go back to that original point that you mentioned about touch not my anointed and do my prophets no harm. Really quickly, it's used out of context.
Yes,
and
I agree.
And obviously wrongly interpreted. But also there's a scripture that says that scripture is there for reproof, for correction.
Yep.
And so if I cannot rebuke my pastor for doing wrong, then we're not practicing.
There's a problem. You're not practicing Christianity properly,
as
are
it
you?
should be. So.
I like that. If I do not rebuke my pastor, then we're not practicing Christianity correctly. There have to be checks and balances. We do have a lot more to talk about, but we're going to go away on a quick break. We are heading for a short break, but when we come back, I want to ask my panel if the punishment for wayward pastors should be harsher than those of their flock. See you after the break. You're still watching NONI. Welcome back. You're still watching NONI with me, Mercy Ajisafe, and my guests, Sam Olomo, Rachel David, and Christopher Ajisafe. So the question we were discussing before the break was why so-called men of God are never held to account. And just before we talk about the punishments that they need, because punishment is necessary, you know what they say, if you don't want to do the time, listen, don't do the crime. Now let me give you a few facts about the crimes. Now, you know, I'm talking about paedophilia in particular. Do you know that most children who are molested know their abuser? Only 10% of children are abused by a stranger. 90% know their abuser. Now, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court made one of the broadest ever investigations into Catholic clerical sex abuse of minors in the United States in August public. The document, which was a 1,400-page grand jury report, is the result of an 18-month probe by Pennsylvania State Attorney General Josh Shapiro, and the names at least 300 priests accused of child sex abuse by more than 1,000 victims throughout the state. Those numbers are pretty large. 300 priests accused of child sex abuse by more than 1,000 victims in the state of Pennsylvania. Now, if we go back home to Nigeria, you know, this is a massive problem because we've already spoken about the hierarchy in the church. We haven't spoken about the hierarchy within our culture. Now, as Yoruba people in potential, you of course from Edo State, but you know you are one of our cousins. We have a shared ancestor. You know, the Yoruba culture is very, very heavily entrenched in respect and hierarchy. You know, we have a saying in Yoruba that is "Agbalagba Onkuro," which basically loosely translates into adults don't tell lies, which makes it increasingly difficult for children when they're trying to, you know, whenever they want to report what's happened. You know, Nigerian children find it really difficult to talk to their parents about things that have happened to them because, you know, A, they're usually never believed, they're just not listened to, because as Nigerian children, we're kind of raised to be seen and not heard. You know, there was a very popular media personality in Nigeria, Wofi Fada, who after, you know, Busola Dokola came out with her reports and her account of rape, she said, listen, when I was going to church, it was very difficult. I was a normal young girl. I used to want to go out to parties. You know, I used to sneak out. Because she was always sneaking out and having fun, her parents decided that she needed deliverance. The pastor at her church actually said, you know what? She needs deliverance. I'm going to take her to be delivered. And Wofi said that when she was alone with the pastor in church, he started molesting her. He was literally touching her breasts and touching her. And she ran, she went home, and when she got home to her dad, what happened? Her dad beat her and said that she's a liar and sent her back to the church and said, you want to escape, you don't want to do deliverance, you don't want to get better. No, sent her right back to church. And you know what she said? This was the saddest part of the whole video. She said, after that, I just let him do what he wants because obviously my father didn't believe me. Wow. You know, so this is something that we really have to talk. Rachel, you in particular did say that, you know, the whole touch not my anointed was something that scared you ragged growing up. Now, as a child, did you feel under pressure and kind of feel like, you know, because we had a Sunday school teacher in church. We actually, you know, we actually used to go to the same church, and we had a Sunday school teacher that we agreed we had no business being in charge of children. But, you know, for a lot of us, we never really wanted to say anything because we felt we wouldn't be believed.
Well, I think, yeah, in terms of the culture, there is that element of someone's older than you, someone's in a position of authority. You don't question them. If they do something bad, you don't talk about it. Mm-hmm. I remember, and also I think there was a level of embarrassment as well for parents. So if their child would come and say, Uncle so-and-so did this, or Pastor so-and-so did something else, it was embarrassing for the parents as well to kind of take it up. So they kind of just want their child to be quiet and just, you know what, look, that's not something that we can really deal about. It's not really something that I can bring to the forum, because you don't want to be the one whose child is the one that's accusing someone else in the church, or someone, especially someone who's a pastor or someone in authority. So I do remember that, like, having that, being aware of that embarrassment of, don't be the child that, you know, comes with a bad story about an adult. Definitely don't be the child who's involved in any kind of scandal. Kind of just face front, do what you're told, and, you know, keep quiet about anything else that, you know, is untoward.
And that is a little bit unfortunate when you think about it, because children are the most vulnerable members of our society, and if we're not taking care of them, what are we doing? I don't know. Now let's talk about punishment. Before we actually talk about the punishment of the pastors and the perpetrators, I just thought about something. Do you think that parents should be held in contempt for exposing their children to danger? For example, case in point, let's say we have a very popular pastor or priest who has been accused of paedophilia or sexual abuse many times over. Now, let's say as a parent, you continue to allow your child to be alone with this, you know, monster or predator, and something does happen in the future. Do you think that parents should be held accountable for this sort of behavior? Because you are choosing to ignore the writing that is clearly on the wall. You are willfully being ignorant and exposing your child to danger. Christopher, what do you think?
Yeah. Blame's always a touchy ground.
You've just become a new father. You got a little girl, your little baby princess called Ife. Now you know you can speak on fathers.
Imagine me leaving my daughter at some man's house, because I feel like there's something wrong with her. Who else should be blamed? You know, I think, not going off point slightly, but you know, it's like with the Michael Jackson issues, where you have these parents saying, oh well, you know, we were just in also we left our kids with them overnight. It's like, who else? What have you done to your children? What have you set them up for the rest of their lives? Of course they're definitely to blame. I understand there's a lot of trust that goes on in the communities. This person that you are entrusting your children to, someone that you have a lot of respect for, but nevertheless, you know, that you have to be biblical about things, and you do have a lot of families who look to pastors instead of looking to God, and I think when you start doing things like that, that's where the problems start, really. Definitely.
Well, now we've talked about the crimes, let's discuss my favourite part is punishment. Now we have to talk about punishment because touch not or you're anointed, whatever. You know what I find really ridiculous? So interestingly enough, this same Gucci pastor, and I have to say, by the way, I'm not going to judge you, but anybody who calls themselves a Gucci pastor, I think you really need to reconsider what your priority is and whether your congregation are really your priority or whether it's Gucci. Anyway, now it's interesting when you think about it because, you know, let's talk about policemen. Now when policemen go bent, you know, you got a bent copper, whenever one of them go bent or they get into trouble and they're actually tried and convicted, which doesn't happen often, but when they're actually tried and convicted, they are given harsher sentences because it's almost like you've let down the law. Your job was to uphold the law and you didn't. You flagrantly disregarded the law and you've committed crimes, you know, so they are held, you know, they're given harsher punishments. Do you think that pastors should be given harsher punishments than their congregation or than, you know, the everyday, the layman, because they are indeed men of God? And the reason why I ask this is because, once again, going back to our Gucci pastor, a few years ago, there was a woman called S.A. Walters who came out to say that she had a very unhealthy sexual relationship with this man. She just felt uncomfortable, and she said she felt he took advantage of his position as her pastor. Now, of course, you know Nigeria. You know, the thing is, I love Nigeria. I love being Nigerian, but the thing about it is that Nigeria is a heavily misogynistic country, heavily misogynistic. Whenever women come out to talk, you know, we always have to refute what they say. We blame them, we insult them, and victim blaming is a serious problem we have in Nigeria. Now, Estee said, when she spoke to Gucci pastor, and she said, listen, you know, pastor, I don't think this is right. I don't think we should do this. He said to her, it's okay. I have a higher level of grace that God has given me. So with the higher level of grace that you have been given, do you not think that the fall should be even harder? Your fall from grace should be spectacular. What do you think about punishments and whether they should be given harsher punishments than lay people?
From a personal, not from a biblical
Yes,
standpoint.
from a personal
Perspective, I think that something as serious as rape, they should be handed to the authorities.
Immediately.
Immediately. There is no question of let's hide them, because the church should be seen as distancing themselves from acts of rape, acts that of child molestation, anything that would make us look like we're not blameless. And the thing is, I feel like something as serious as this accusation, the manner in which it's been dealt with up until this point, I personally feel it's been dealt with wrong, and people like Biodun Fatiobo owes the church a duty and owes God a duty.
He has a duty of care to his congregation.
To come out and say, look, investigate the situation properly.
Yes.
Authorities, do what you want to do with me, because I am transparent. In fact, I'm innocent, as opposed to hiding behind the church and saying things that he shouldn't be saying from the pulpit. I mean, I recall the other day he had two members from Cannes coming to address the church. Cannes is an independent body.
Yes.
However, I remember Cannes saying that they didn't in fact send those people to give a talk at his church. And what he's doing is he's not really showing that soberness that that God requires for a leader. And yeah.
And you know, the truth is that children could have been saved from abuse if the church had focused less on its reputation. That's according to the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse. It says now more than 130 allegations of abuse were made against 78 individuals associated with Birmingham's Catholic Church. Now, this is a problem that we're experiencing in Nigeria. Now, we really do not have that much time. This is I think, listen, we need like a whole season just to discuss this. But I need your last thoughts on this situation. A, about whether you believe that they should be given harsher punishments, and B, how do you think we as Africans can continue, and not just Africans, because obviously we're talking about Birmingham, we're talking about Pennsylvania, this is rampant in all churches, but as Africans, because this is Yanga, this is NONI, as Africans, how do you think that we can continue to actually protect our children, our boys, our girls, our women, you know?
Yeah, I definitely think that they should be given harsher punishments, because it's not only the crime that they're convicted of. It's not just, okay, you've been accused and you've been convicted of like a rape or sexual abuse or whatever. It's also abuse of authority, it's abuse of trust, it's abuse of like a public office. And although maybe sometimes in Nigeria and sometimes in these churches, it's not a public office as like the police, but so many people, so many members of the public entrust them, they have a lot of authority over those people. So I think it should be treated the same way that police officers are.
I like that. Christopher, what are your last thoughts?
I think, unfortunately, I'm going to take a slightly more pragmatic view, because you have these pastors who own their churches sometimes. If you own your church, you're a CEO of your church. You're accountable to almost nobody. And I think that's one of the biggest issues. I think we have to train our children to be more vigilant, our parents to be more biblical and to look to God and not the pastors. If we, on the lower level, if you want to call it that, the congregational level, if we can be more vigilant and we're committed to stopping this, then I think you'd make a great, there'd be more of a greater effort.
Mr. Alomo.
May I add, actually, I feel a lot what some churches are doing to even, because I believe prevention is also good as well. They're introducing, for you to be a teacher in the church, you have to have a DBS check. So something as minute as that can save a child's life and prevent them from being molested.
Oh, God, you guys have been absolutely amazing. I have to say, I had a superstar panel. Y'all are so good looking. Y'all so intelligent. You spoke so well. You know, I have to say, if I was ever going to make a public committee into the inquiry of pastors, I think I would call you three to come and help me out with it.
I would love to be on it.
I think it's really important. You know, all jokes aside, it's so important that we continue to protect ourselves, can protect our families, and most importantly, protect the children from all and every predator, whether it's their father or mother or even a pastor. Stop doing yourself and your family a disservice and leaving them with people that you can't trust. No, honestly, I'm talking to every single African, every single Nigerian out there, because this is something that we do. Listen to your children. If your children feel uncomfortable around a certain pastor, around anyone, listen to them. If they say their Sunday school teacher makes them feel uncomfortable, listen to them. Listen to them. Well, that's it from me, Mercy Ajisafe, and my fantastic guests, Sam Alomo, Rachel David, and of course, Christopher Ajisafe. Well, thank you so much for joining me, guys. And don't forget, every single episode of NONI, past and present, is available online at yangatv.com. So wherever you are in the world, you can see this show and other great content only from Yanga. Join us again soon for more entertaining chats. Goodbye.